Okay, well, thank you and welcome back, everybody. We are going to be looking at the game between Zankar and Marshall. We will see how one-sided this game is. Zankar, my personal favourite for winning the tournament after Kissel, and Kissel now down a game. So let me count us down to starting the Sorian. So 3, 2, 1, let's start.
Righty.
Okay, and what about yourself? What do you think for this game?
As much as I would love to root for Marshall, I don't see it happening. I'm going for Zankar here.
Yeah, I would love to see Marshall pull a miracle out of the bag here, but Zankar is an absolutely amazing player, and Marshall, a wonderful player as he is, and even given his much more competitive streak recently and the number of games he's been racking up, I think Zankar is going to prove to be a bit too much for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would think so. Looks like both players opting to start with bots this time around, so we'll see a bot versus bot match on this map instead of bots versus tanks.
I think that's a smart move. There's a lot of spread out metal. There's a lot of opportunities for flanking and shutting down around the rear. The amphibious element of the bots helps with that kind of raiding. And I think then a lot of players switch up to a more vehicle-orientated formation later in the game to make a big push down the middle to bring it home.
Yeah, I definitely like bots on this map more than vehicles. Just opens up a lot more opportunities, a lot more options with the bases being so spread out and such, like you said.
Well, I've always enjoyed mass air on this map, and allow me to say I have not won a game on this map yet. So take that as you will for that strategy.
Yeah, air, man, air. God, I remember during the alpha beta days, air just being so terribly overpowered and.
The days of the gunship rush.
Yes, the gunship rushes. Can't really do that anymore. It's not as effective, especially with the Commander AA weapon. You can't go in the middle of your opponent's base and start taking out all of his fabricators and stuff like you used to. You have to pick off the ones on the edge.
I found actually in one of the games, I think I might be able to bring it home. Unfortunately, my opponent disconnected. We never found out, but it can be surprising, especially if you start out on the when you start out on the island in some of the large games that aren't 1v1. Just because it makes you so hard for someone to attack you, but you've got the ability to reach out and raid all of the outlying metal. And tier 2 air, that now not too bad at all, especially with the new heavy bomber, the Worm. Really gives you the ability to just ignore all of that AA. You just shrug off flak and really punch into an opponent's base.
Yeah, and the new, I can't remember the name of the unit off the top of my head, but the support platform, the one that shoots down incoming AA, yeah, that's the one that shoots down the AA missiles and stuff. You get you get a couple of those in there, and suddenly, your air units are getting repaired, AA missiles are getting shot down. It's like your air force sticks around for a lot longer, and you definitely need that with the worms because they move so slowly. They can't get themselves out of danger like bombers and fighters can. They have to depend on everything else, all the other support that you bring with it.
I was seeing a really solid start for Marshall. It's starting to slip behind the eco a bit, not expanding perhaps quite as aggressively as he needs to. And Zankar's making all the aggressive moves. Marshall's putting some docks out front though. He's got his fighters out on the islands as well, ready to try to shut down a sneaky air fabric expansion from Zankar. So good play so far from him. Zankar though coming out with some bot escorts for his bot Faber. Marshall just not quite in the right position to intercept there.
No, yeah, Marshall, like you said, has a pretty good start. It looks like he's taking more time to put down some defenses to protect his expansion out the back of his base. He's got his bots spread out a bit, covering some of Zankar's expansions. Looks like Zankar just killed a couple of bots that were preventing him from expanding out in front of his base. But yeah, overall, kind of what I expected.
Yeah, Zankar's making the more aggressive moves. I suspect Marshall's playing a little more cautious because he knows he's up against Zankar, and that Zankar's an extremely good player, and I know that can get into your head and you start changing how you play because you're worried that you just know somewhere in the fog of war is an enormous army coming to crush you, and they know all your moves, they've thought of all your strategies, and you're going to lose. And suddenly you hang back, and that's what costs you the game.
Yeah, I think the only thing hurting Marshall right now is just the lack of Fabbers. Like we've seen in some of the other games, Marshall opting to just have the 2 Fabbers going out and building stuff, while Zankar has 5 going out and, grabbing expansions and stuff for him, which makes a huge difference.
Yeah, actually, I think with the air fighter control over those islands, it might have been a good move at this point to get an air fabber out and claim those islands for himself. Especially as Zankar hasn't really been making any moves. Those 2 fighters still alive. Zankar's attempt to expand out there got him shot down, albeit a bit late. Marshall, I think, missing a bit of opportunity to expand that nicely, but he's still managed to hold his own in terms of units. But we see the first change in composition, the all docks approaching Zankar. Marshall actually raiding around the back of Zankar's base now.
Yeah, and yeah, that point defense is just going to chew those docks up, though, before they can start putting down enough damage to really hurt much.
Unfortunately, no. It really just had to ignore the point defense, get in there and just take the Faber, I think, and just try and claim that as your win. But still denying Zankar this space out the back, denying him the islands, lacking the AA amongst his ground force.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. He's got this force out in the middle, but they're just going to get chewed to bits by a bomber. Wisely spreading out his units, though.
Yeah, and
but yeah,
nice area patrol going on there, I think. And we see he's also got some drifters, so perhaps not the best choice at this point of the game, simply because Zankar doesn't appear to be making any effort to actually get into the water. And one of the wonderful things about drifters is the fact that you can harass with your ground troops out in the water, unlike docks. And also that these more standard torpedo defences are absolutely no use against them. No hover unit can be touched by torpedoes. Oh, it's a beautiful bombing by Marshall.
Oh, yeah, nice bombing. Some bombers coming up for Zankar now. Yeah, those bots were nicely taken care of by Marshall, but yeah, once again, his ground forces are going to get chewed up by bombers, just due to a lack of AA.
So consolidate his air forces, but we see them all hanging out at different locations to stop expansion. But really, without any spinners in his mix, and we start to see the beginnings of spinners coming out now.
There we go.
But he needs to consolidate, and I don't think with the all docks approach that Zankar's taken, I don't think he's going to find that having those grenadiers, and there's a good choice. The docks are going to collect because grenadiers can't kite anymore. They have to always be attacking, and against docks, you want to kite. So I think he's going to regret that choice.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, Marshall getting the advanced bout factory down. Yeah, I guess that's an option. I was going to comment on the fact that it looks like Marshall has kind of given up on expanding a bit, though. Like, he got the metal extractors that he got at the beginning of the game, but he hasn't been expanding out. Like, even on the front part of his platform, he hasn't grabbed those two. He's really starting to lose the eco game here because he's not expanding out to grab more metal extractors, and doesn't look like he's doing a whole lot to harass down Zankar's.
Yeah, I think he doesn't know how to... Zankar's got point defense down at a lot of his locations. I don't think he knows how to harass those points. I don't think he knows exactly how he can do it. He's got his bots out there, he's waiting for an opportunity, but he doesn't know what to do. And you can see him taking a very defensive formation now. I believe he's getting himself a little overwhelmed by Zankar, and splitting his force there, maybe not a good idea. He really needs to bring them together. Actually, if you've got grenadiers, take advantage of that fact to be shelling those docks over the edge of that platform where the docks can't fire back.
Absolutely, yeah, that would be a good way of clearing those docks that are about to go towards the back of his base.
Yeah, Zankar actually being surprisingly passive with those docks. I think he's just trying to shut Marshall down at this point. We're seeing more large docks armies forming out there, and now the switch to vehicles, which means he's setting up his big push down the centre. That's always when that's always the indication your opponent's getting ready to finish you off. Docks to shut you down your expansion, and when they've choked your eco into vehicles for the I don't know, the hammer strike. There you go. I'm coining that term.
Hammer strike. All right. TM property of Exodus eSports.
.com. Beautiful. I do it. Marshall quite a little out of position here. His force is still around the front of the base, and these docks now come around the back. His air force is going to get chewed up there. Not looking good for Marshall, and that one Faber on the advanced bot factory, nowhere near enough. If you're going to tech like that, you've really just got to invest everything you've got into it and get it out ASAP.
Yep, and as soon as Marshall starts pulling his forces back to protect his base, that's when Zankar starts coming in through the front door.
Again, with the shocks, they're losing some shocks because they're outranged. Again, with the opponent pushing into you, you've got to hold the line with those with the shocks and just let them use their AoE damage amongst all those docks, where they could really be devastating, especially with the docks moving slower because they're grouped up with the tanks. I think a really good opportunity there to get in some damage.
Yep, here they come, moving through the front door. Commander's not really meeting. You know what? I would be moving the commander forward some and start firing off some uber cannons from range to get rid of these units.
Yeah, I think so as well. And smartly moving his shocks there behind the Infernos for cover. But yeah, I think he needed to bring his commander forward and take advantage of the fact that he was on the defensive and could really bring the uber cannons into play to turn that one around. But unfortunately, he's come down the ramp, he's getting chewed up now. Zankar's bringing up his vehicle forces. Marshall's still managing to do some little raids out on the island and denying Zankar a lot of that extra metal out there, but Zankar doesn't need it at this point. He's got too much of the map.
Yeah. Oh,
That's the GG from Marshall.
That's the GG from Marshall. Yep.
Yep. And that's unfortunately I think Zankar really showing his talent there.
Yeah, absolutely. He just, look at the number of factories he's got going on the other side of the map. He's just swarming out units left and right.